The day I turned down the job I'd worked my whole life for, I told myself it was the right thing to do. 7 months later, I found out my stepmother had been lying about everything, and I realized I'd built my future on a foundation of lies. I found out my dad died 2 hours before a job interview that could have changed my life. I was in Chicago, standing outside the building, dressed too clean for how dirty I felt inside. The call came from his neighbor. He'd collapsed in the driveway. Gone before the ambulance even got there. I remember staring at the phone, not blinking. Just silence, cars passing, people walking like nothing happened. I didn't go into the interview. I just turned around, went back to my apartment, and booked the first bus back to Iowa. I was 22. I just finished school, worked a year in tech support, finally landed something real. The offer in Chicago was a legit position. Not entry level. Good pay, good team, upward potential. Everything I'd been grinding for. But none of it mattered after that call. I left everything behind. Growing up, it was just me and Dad for a long time. Mom was never in the picture. But when I turned 12, Dad met Sheila. She was younger than him, kind of cold, but he looked at her like she was his second chance. So I gave her a chance too. It wasn't easy. She wasn't cruel or abusive or anything, just distant. Like I was something she tolerated for Dad's sake. But whatever, I had my room, my books, my life. Dad worked his ass off in maintenance. Always came home tired, but never too tired to ask about my day. Sheila, though she didn't work, said she had chronic fatigue, something with her immune system. I never saw any papers, but Dad seemed to believe it. So I believed it too. I left for college at 18, came home on breaks. They were still together, still the same. Dad working overtime, Sheila binging crime shows, complaining she was too tired to do much. Again, I didn't question it. When Dad passed, Sheila was a mess. I mean, a complete wreck. Crying in the hospital, couldn't get out of bed, couldn't eat, couldn't drive. Everything became my responsibility overnight. The house. The bills. Arrangements. I told myself it was temporary. That I'd go back to Chicago after everything was settled. But the funeral came and went, and Sheila didn't get better. She told me her condition had worsened. Something new now, fibromyalgia, or maybe it was something else. She never really explained it the same way twice. Said she couldn't work, couldn't cook, could barely leave the house. She looked tired, sure, and I guess I still had that instinct to protect, to take care. So I said okay. I stayed. Got a job at the local cable company. Nothing glamorous, but enough to cover the mortgage, utilities, groceries, gas. I moved back into my old room. And just like that, the life I'd been building cracked and folded inward. I tried to keep it together. Told myself this was what a good son does. Family first, right? Take care of the people who took care of you. I let the job in Chicago go. Politely declined. Said, something came up. They were kind about it. Left the door open. But I knew doors didn't stay open forever. I cooked meals. Paid bills. Mowed the lawn. Took Sheila to the doctor once or twice, though I noticed she always seemed to cancel follow-ups. Or say the appointments got moved. I didn't question it. Not until that 7th month. When everything fell apart. I came home from work one Thursday afternoon, exhausted. I'd had to cover someone else's route and missed lunch completely. My plan was to heat up leftovers, crash on the couch, and forget about the world for a while. But when I walked in, Sheila was laughing in the living room with someone. I paused in the hallway. That laugh, it wasn't the tired, wheezy, pain-soaked sound I'd grown used to. It was light. Relaxed. Then I heard a voice. A man's voice. I stepped in, and there was Sheila on the couch, hair done, makeup on, sitting upright like she wasn't the same woman who claimed she couldn't walk without pain just 2 days ago. Across from her sat some guy, maybe late 40s, dressed business casual, flipping through what looked like travel brochures. I stood there like an idiot. Sheila noticed me and lit up, like I'd just gotten home from summer camp. "Oh, John, this is Derek. He's with the travel agency, just helping me plan that cruise I've been thinking about." I didn't say anything. I just stared at the papers. Caribbean cruise. 7 nights. Spa packages. Gourmet dining. I looked back at her. What cruise? Oh, don't be dramatic. I've been thinking about getting away. For my health, you know. I thought you couldn't leave the house. Her smile twitched for a second, like she hadn't expected that. Derek awkwardly excused himself, sensing tension, and slipped out. I didn't speak for a moment. I walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, closed it. Then I leaned on the counter and just stared. Sheila, I finally said. What's going on? She started explaining, something about how she hadn't felt great but was finally turning a corner. How she needed to treat herself. How stress had been the root of her problems, and now that things were settled, she could finally begin to live. I asked her straight up, were you ever sick? That was the moment. Her face hardened. The softness dropped. And in the coldest tone I'd ever heard her use, she said, do you think I asked you to stay here? I think I stopped breathing. You didn't have to. You said you were sick. You let me believe it. She stood up. You chose to stay, John. Don't make me the villain because you decided to play the martyr. I don't even remember what I said next. Maybe nothing. Maybe I just walked out. I ended up sitting in my car for an hour in the driveway, replaying everything, every late payment I covered, every job interview I skipped, every weekend I stayed in this dead town instead of chasing my own life. It wasn't just the money. It was the betrayal. The manipulation. The fact that she tricked my father too. I found out later, from one of Dad's old friends, that he had quietly paid off Sheila's credit card debt years ago, thinking she couldn't work because of her condition. That she'd been dodging real work since her 20s. That he kept supporting her even when he could barely afford his own medications. It wasn't just me she played. It was both of us. And now he was gone. And I was the one holding the bag. I went back inside that night, packed a bag, and told her I was leaving. She didn't cry. Didn't plead. Just shrugged and said, figured this day would come. Like it was no big deal. Like I hadn't just wasted almost a year of my life believing I was helping someone who needed it. I left without saying goodbye. Slept in a cheap motel 2 towns over. And the next day, I called the company in Chicago. Asked if that door was still open. And for some reason, maybe luck, maybe grace, it was. I moved to Chicago 3 weeks later. Left everything behind. The furniture, the porch swing Dad and I built, even the toolbox I kept by the back door. I didn't want anything that reminded me of her, of what I'd given up. The apartment I rented was small, barely big enough for my bed and a desk, but it was mine. I had a job offer in hand, savings scraped together, and more importantly, a clean break. My first day at the new company was surreal. Big office. Glass walls. Espresso machine in the lobby. I walked in wearing the only decent blazer I owned, nervous as hell, wondering if I was too behind, too broken, too used to being everyone's crutch to really show up for myself. But they welcomed me. No one cared about my detour. They just saw someone willing to work. And for the first time in what felt like years, I let myself want things again. I kept my head down and worked. I wasn't the smartest guy in the room, but I listened. Learned fast. I stayed late. Asked questions. 2 months in, I got my first bonus. Small, but enough to feel like something was finally turning around. I bought a used car, a half-decent mattress, and started breathing again. But of course, the peace didn't last. Sheila started calling. First it was just voicemails, confused ones, fake concerned ones. John, are you okay? Haven't heard from you. I just wanted to check in. Then the guilt trips. Your father would be so disappointed. I don't know why you left things this way. I blocked her number. Then the emails started. Then the posts on Facebook, passive-aggressive ones about ungrateful stepsons and people who abandon family when it's convenient. She even tagged my name once. Like she wanted to drag me back into her web with shame. I didn't respond. Not once. But my cousin did. She called me one night, laughing bitterly, telling me Sheila was telling anyone who'd listen that I ran off with the inheritance. A lie so bold it would have been funny if it wasn't so insulting. There wasn't any inheritance. Dad died with debt, and I'd paid off most of it. But Sheila didn't care about facts. She cared about controlling the story. The thing is, no one really believed her. Not for long. People talk. People remember who shows up. And Sheila, well, her mask only holds for so long. Turns out she tried to pull the same illness story again with someone else. This time, nobody bit. Meanwhile, I kept building. New friends. New goals. A life with boundaries and purpose. I wasn't perfect, still had nights where I questioned everything, but I was free. And that freedom? That was worth every lie, every lost year, every penny I'd spent trying to fix something that was never real to begin with. I wasn't the stepson anymore. I wasn't the caretaker. I was just John. And that finally felt like enough. 1 month after I moved to Chicago, I got a letter. A real paper letter in a white envelope with no return address. The handwriting was wide and soft, big loopy letters I recognized immediately. It was hers. Inside were a few pages, not angry, not blaming, not this time. It was a confession. Or what she thought counted as one. She wrote about how hard it was living with my dad, how she'd felt lost, how the illness started as a lie to avoid work, then became habit, then strategy, then desperation. How it was a way to keep a man close. And when he died, a way to keep me. She admitted she didn't know how to live alone, how to be self-sufficient. That I had become her last anchor. That she didn't think I'd leave. That she hoped, if she could just keep me around a little longer, maybe I'd stay forever. At the end there was a request. Not for forgiveness. Not for contact. Just one thing, don't hate her. I didn't. But I also wasn't going back. I folded the letter and placed it in a box where I kept the last pieces of that life. Old pictures, a key to the house, the note my dad wrote me for my last birthday. Then I closed the box. I never opened it again. My life moved forward. I got a promotion. I started seeing someone, a teacher I met at a party through a friend. We walked the city together, ate pizza on the river steps, talked about maybe taking a road trip to Arizona. For the first time, I felt like my life was mine. My choices, my path, no guilt attached. Sometimes I still felt the ache for home. Not for the house I left, but the one I remembered. The mornings that smelled like coffee. The weekends in the garage with my dad. The structure and quiet kindness that held everything together. But when those memories came, I reminded myself, I'm building that now. A place where no one fakes their pain. Where respect isn't earned through silence and suffering. Where love isn't control, it's a choice. I don't know where she is now. Maybe she found someone else to convince she's sick. Maybe she's finally alone. Maybe she changed. That's not my burden anymore. I'm not responsible for saving people who lie to me. My name is John. I live in Chicago. I have a damn good job. A life I chose. And I will never go back to a place where lies speak louder than love. I'm Brian. 33. Lived in Toledo my whole damn life. For the last 6 years I lived with my dad and stepmom, in the same house I grew up in. It started simple. Dad got sick, like, the real kind of sick. Cancer, the kind with tubes and treatments, and pills that made him too tired to stand up for longer than a few minutes. He couldn't work. Tina, my stepmom, was working full-time and trying to hold it together, but the bills started stacking. I'd just gotten laid off from my warehouse gig and figured, screw it, I'll move back home, help out, get a job locally, make sure Dad gets through this. I didn't just move in and freeload. I picked up the utilities, the groceries, even half the mortgage once I got stable. Tina would thank me with words, sure, but Dad? He was quieter. Every now and then he'd say things like, couldn't have done this without you. And that was enough. I didn't need much. The house was small, but I had my space, and we had a rhythm. I worked at a small parts supplier during the day, cooked dinner most nights, fixed the fence when it fell apart, paid for the internet and the water heater when it blew out. I wasn't saving much, but I felt like I was doing something that mattered. Like I was holding the roof up so they could breathe. A year passed. Then another. Then another. Dad got better. He didn't go back to work, but he started fishing again, mowing the lawn, doing the dishes without me asking. Tina cut back her hours. Things were better. But I didn't stop covering the bills. It just felt like that was my place now. Not forever, maybe. But for now. I thought we were a team. Then, around July this year, we're all sitting in the backyard, grilling burgers, drinking beer, just the three of us like usual. And Tina says, kind of casually, like she's talking about the weather, "Have you thought about maybe getting your own place, Brian? You're 33. It might be time to fly solo." I laughed. Thought it was a joke. But she looked at me, then at Dad, and I saw it. That weird hesitation. Like this wasn't the first time they talked about it. And Dad just goes, "She's not wrong, son. You've been a big help, but maybe it's time you start living your life, you know? Independently." I didn't know what to say. My beer went warm in my hand. I think I mumbled something like, "Sure, yeah, maybe," and went inside. Slept like shit that night. It wasn't that I didn't want to move out, it was the way they said it. Like I'd overstayed. Like I was some college dropout with empty chip bags on the floor, not the guy who kept the damn lights on for half a decade. I didn't argue. A week later, I found a small one-bedroom across town, signed the lease, packed my stuff. No drama. No fight. Just silence. Tina hugged me. Dad shook my hand. Told me to call if I needed anything. I said thanks, and didn't look back. It's funny, when I was younger, I used to picture myself leaving that house with a backpack and a smirk, off to conquer the world. Instead I left with 4 trash bags and a coffee maker I bought myself. The world didn't feel conquered. It felt cold. A couple months passed after I moved out, and I started settling into my new place, nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom in a converted duplex with creaky floors and neighbors who blast country music every Sunday morning, but it was mine. And for the first time in years I didn't have to check if someone else already took the hot water, didn't have to ask before I put leftovers in the fridge. Didn't have to wait up to see if Dad took his meds. I missed him, sure, but the quiet wasn't all bad, and slowly it felt like I could breathe again, like I wasn't carrying the weight of someone else's survival on my shoulders every day. I still called sometimes, sent texts like, "How's the knee?" or, "Did the mower get fixed?" And they'd respond, short, polite, never cold but never warm either, just neutral, and I tried not to let that bug me too much. I figured they were adjusting too. Then October rolls around, and I hear through my cousin Haley, who works with Tina at the dental clinic, that they're throwing this big family barbecue for Dad's birthday, catered food, decorations, people flying in from out of state, the works, and I think, cool, maybe this is their way of reconnecting, so I text Dad. "Let me know what to bring." And he doesn't respond. I wait a day, then another, then I text Tina. "Haley mentioned something about a barbecue for Dad's birthday?" And she replies, "Oh. So sorry, I assumed Jeremy told you. We're keeping it small this year, just close family." Jeremy is my half-brother from Tina's side, 19, lives with his girlfriend and still asks for gas money. And suddenly I feel this drop in my gut like I got sucker punched without even realizing I was in a fight. Just close family. And I'm not? After all that time living under the same roof, paying bills, driving Dad to chemo, replacing their damn furnace with my Christmas bonus. I don't even get a text. I didn't blow up, didn't respond, just stared at the message and let it rot in my inbox like an old sandwich nobody wants to claim. Then that Sunday I'm scrolling on Facebook, and there it is. Photos from the party, balloons, the "Happy 60th Rick" banner strung across the garage door, my dad smiling with ribs in his hand, Tina standing beside him, and there's Jeremy giving a toast with a beer in one hand and a big proud grin like he's the goddamn golden son. Comment after comment from family members I haven't seen in years, all talking about how great it was to see everyone again. And family is everything. And I'm just sitting there in my shitty apartment with a frozen pizza in the oven thinking, was I really that disposable? I didn't go nuclear. I didn't send a long ranty text or show up at their door demanding answers. I just went quiet. Like radio silent. Because what was I supposed to say? Hey, thanks for letting me foot the bills for 2 years only to treat me like a +1 in a life I was holding together? Nah. I was tired. Like deep in your bones kind of tired. I muted the family group chat. Stopped checking their Facebook posts. Let the calls roll to voicemail. And you know what? For a minute it felt good. Like I finally put the backpack down and realized just how damn heavy it had been. Until the bills started showing up again. Not to my address, those had stopped. But I started getting texts. "Hey Brian, did you ever renew the pest control contract? Dad says the Wi-Fi's acting up again, do you still have the account login? Oh, by the way, the water softener system is beeping, did you cancel the service?" And that was the moment I realized they hadn't actually taken back the responsibility. They just assumed I'd keep handling it from the sidelines. Like I was still part of the infrastructure, just not part of the family. That's when I sat down and opened a spreadsheet, yeah, I'm that kind of guy, and started listing out every bill I'd paid in the last 2 years. The monthly lawn service I'd signed up for. The pest control. The home security system. The HVAC maintenance plan. My name was on all of it. Not Tina's. Not Dad's. Mine. Quiet, thankless, automatic. So I started shutting it all off. One by one. Not out of revenge. Out of clarity. If I was no longer family, then I was no longer responsible. I sent Dad a simple email. "Hi, just a heads up, I've cancelled all remaining home services under my name as of November 1st. Hope everything goes smoothly with the transitions. Best, Brian." That's it. No emotion. No explanation. Just facts. The next day, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Tina left a voicemail that started with, "We just want to understand what's going on," and ended with her low-key scolding me for being passive-aggressive. Jeremy texted, "Yo man, Dad's really stressed, can you just fix the Wi-Fi one last time?" I didn't reply. And then came the message from Dad. It was short. It just said, "Didn't expect this from you. Thought we were better than that." And I sat there staring at the screen like, "You didn't expect what? Me having boundaries? Me being done being used like a subscription service with no login? You made the rules. You said I was just a guest. I'm just playing by the label you gave me." But deep down it hurt. Of course it hurt. Because no matter how hard you try to be logical about it, it still stings when the people you showed up for stop showing up for you. Still, I didn't break. I didn't explain myself. I just let the silence do the work for once. Thanksgiving rolled around, and for the first time in years, I didn't make the green bean casserole. That sounds small, right? But I've made that damn dish every year since I was 19. I didn't get an invite. Not even a, "Hey, we're doing dinner, if you want to come." Just silence. I saw photos on Facebook, Tina posting shots of a perfectly set table, Jeremy cracking a beer with Dad by the fireplace, some friend of a cousin I'd never even met carving the turkey. And there was this one caption that really hit me. "Grateful for the people who really matter." I stared at it for a good minute. Like, okay. Message received. I closed the app. Turned my phone off. Made myself pasta. And ate it on my balcony with a cheap bottle of red wine and the hum of traffic below. And I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. A week later, I got an email from the pest control company. They'd reached out to Tina and Dad about renewing the service, and apparently, they'd said they weren't interested. A few days after that, Dad called me from a new number. Guessed they'd finally canceled the phone line I'd been paying for. I didn't pick up. He left a voicemail. "Brian, I don't know what this is all about. If it's about the house, fine, we said some things. But I didn't mean we don't appreciate what you've done. Look, we've had a few hiccups since you left. Maybe we underestimated how much you were holding together. Can we talk?" It was the closest I'd ever gotten to an acknowledgement. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. Because I needed them to sit in it for a while. To live without the silent safety net. To understand that the person they labeled a guest was actually the one making sure the roof didn't collapse. It took until Christmas for Dad to finally write me a letter. Handwritten. Not a text. Not an email. A letter. In it, he said he hadn't realized how much responsibility I'd taken on. Said he'd let Tina run the house and that maybe she hadn't handled things as gracefully as she could have. He didn't apologize directly. Not really. But he said he missed me. That it felt off without me there. That Jeremy had been trying to fix the Wi-Fi for 2 weeks and accidentally reset the entire router twice. I laughed reading that part. Because of course he did. And for the first time in months, I thought maybe, just maybe, I'll show up next year. On my own terms. Subscribe, hit the like button, and explore more fascinating stories.